Ready, set, go. Do you remember what Lightning McQueen said when he and Mater left the circus and Ivy stayed? This is the beginning of something great. And this was actually what I have been thinking when I went to the cinema yesterday and saw the posters everywhere. Before we start with this edition of the Pixar update, there's our intro. Yeah, so it's Yeah, so it's ages since we have had the last edition of the Pixar update, which was in fact on Cars on the Road, which premiered on September the 8th in 2022. And finally, I am back with a bunch of new contents here because I have just watched Pixar's Elemental, as I have already stated, as you can see in the title and the thumbnail. And man, this film was amazing. So it started a week later in Germany than in the US. That's why I am a bit late. Before we start with the film, I'd like to take a quick look at Carl State, the brand new Pixar short film that was released along Elemental and actually continues an old tradition of Pixar, which means there is a short film and then there's the feature. They have had this in almost every film. There were only a few exceptions, especially the first ones, and now the last ones, which have more or less all been only available on Disney Plus due to the coronavirus. So, Carl State focuses on the struggle of dating, especially if you're old and you feel uncomfortable with it in any way. And this is the case of Carl, who is old, whose wife has passed away quite a few years ago, and now he doesn't know what to do when a lady friend asks him for a date. Doug is at first confused and tries to keep it up with some dog advices like smell a bit at her back. But that's of course not what Carl is about to do. But in the end, Doug shows to be caring and encourages his friend, so he is ready for the date. The humor was actually quite low, and in my opinion, Doug is a bit an annoying character. I know much better characters that work for humorous parts of films. However, it was okay. The message is slight and smooth, I'd say appropriate for a short, and the feeling is somehow well known because you know the characters, you know the mood in there. However, it had some flaws. It was not the catchiest short film, especially from Pixar, I have seen, but it had warming up feelings, and that's the most important part. Now we can turn on to Pixar's Elemental. So, there's a first phrase that summarizes my opinion on the film. Pixar's latest feature makes opposites react in perfect harmony by uniting a fluid story with a cloud of daft characters as well as flaming music and animation. So I have a slightly new system that combines all aspects with appropriate weighing for rating a film. We will take a look at the story structure first. You have characters that collide, and this makes the plot develop more openly. So, in comparison, you have had Onward, for example, where the characters already knew each other and there were only some side characters passing through. But here you have at first a view at Amber, who's the main character. She's a flame girl, and then Wade, a water boy, actually crashes into her life, and then this plot develops. So there's a problem that needs to be solved, and they get to know each other, and this makes the plot less predictable. It has its highs and lows, and this isn't meant critically. It just means that there are some highs for the interaction between them, and then there are some lows again. You have a lot of depth actually, and there are no major lacks of credibility or consistency within the story itself, and this makes it actually quite well done and realized. 10 out of 10 points. The next point is the story goal slash message. So I think it reflects different elements like the struggle of being an immigrant and prejudices that arise with it, but that it can also be swept away softly by meeting the right people in your life. The film provides a metaphorical image of how chemistry between opposites can actually look like. So it doesn't need to be chaotic. And I think, especially the metaphorical language of using elements here, makes this work quite well. Better than some critics would say, but I personally am convinced that this is the perfect way to handle this film. 9 out of 10 points. Now I'd like to focus on character design. In my opinion, it's not too flat. It's understandable. You have a strong lead of Amber and Wade. I have already pointed out quickly who they are. So Amber is an energetic flame. She tends to be nervous and this makes her become furious. And you have Wade, who is, he's not fully confident, but actually has a lot of experience in life, as it seems. He simply says what he feels, and this makes him actually approachable. This is this kind of character, this kind of person you might meet in your life who turns out to be a good friend, who's always there for you, and that's what makes him a strong character. And these two collide properly and they interact perfectly. You have some sweet sidekicks, which means there are some more characters. For example, Wade's mom, I really liked her. And you have this funny Earth boy Claude, who always comes up with some silly jokes. All in all, these characters are beautifully made. There we have 8 of 10 points. 8 because I didn't like Amber's dad too much. He was partly flat, I think, and he always appeared to be so cruel. You know, he is an immigrant and he had to face a lot of criticism. However, he looked so fierce at some points and not fully elaborated, but that's actually more a point for the next category, character development and interaction. So you have a good chemistry of the focus couple of Amber and Wade, a consistency for the latter's character, although he faces some change too, of course. You have a lot of progress for Amber, and you have this energy of the opposite. So, for example, this boy I have mentioned, Claude, he's crossing borders, he's always coming to Firetown, where Amber is living, so it's a reference, of course, to Chinatown. Although she says, okay, you know, my dad doesn't like this much, he always returns because he likes her and he doesn't have a problem with different elements. You have Wade's open minded family, so I pointed at his mother, who's really such a nice character. So the only weakness here is that Amber's father and also her mom are not fully elaborated. So her mom seems to be pushed back because there's so much cultural identity of owing respect to your father. But I have the feeling that Amber actually only cares about him and not too much about her mother. So this is actually a point where I'd also like to talk to Peter Sohn, the director of the film. So what was the intention here? All in all, character development receives 9 out of 10 though. For world building, I can only say 10 out of 10. You have an absolutely stunning precision to detail. You have lots of harmony, so there isn't actually a contradiction between how the elements work and, for example, why paper burns when Amber touches it and why other paper doesn't, because there is really some paper that can't burn and it is stated like that. And if there are some contradictions within the transition, so if you translate it onto the real society and what it means actually for example, racism, these contradictions vanish because of the metaphorical value here. You see, superficially, it seems like those elements could not react and could not have a life together. But in fact, you see that this is just the superficial image. And that's what I mean here. For the style of the film, so this means the genre, the language it talks to the people, it talks to the audience, I'd say it totally deserves a 9 out of 10 because it is quite unique. You don't have these old-fashioned formulas that sometimes arise in films. There is no pressure or boldness, so you don't need any flat jokes, you don't need too much action to make the film work. For entertainment, I'd rate the film with 8 out of 10 because there is actually a midway of soft humor, touching emotions from time to time, and inspiring sequences of elements who are in their element. So it's really also this tone of having some relaxing scenes that are introduced and that are included and that make this film work so well. For the soundtrack, there's another 8 of 10. You have an appealing lead song. I sometimes state that the song Thunder from Imagine Dragons really matches the theme of a thunder, because for me it is just like you translate a storm with all the lightnings and the thunders and the wind and the rain into a song, and this is how I imagine it to look like and how it really works. And that's what you can say about the song Steal the Show, which is really well done. Also, the soundtrack itself features some suitable themes. It is not too flat, it is not too catchy all in all. However, this doesn't actually matter in Elemental because it is also not too flat. So there is a soft middle of the road, and it's tending to keep up a comfortable pace, and that's what I like about it a lot. So the overall appeal, that's actually a category I always keep for rating those films. It's the charm, the typical Pixar charm that many critics have stated over the last 25 years or so. And I'd say Elemental lets the Pixar flame burn in a brand new and yet well known, appreciated light. So I'd now like to call it the Pixar flame instead of charm, simply because it matches so well the theme of Elemental. It is a classic. It is actually a new film, but a classic to the Pixar formula because it pulls the strings in the way you'd expect Pixar to do it without being predictable. So it's like Monsters Inc., it's like Toy Story and Finding Nemo, just an original that doesn't drop what other films have collected. My personal opinion, go watch this film in theater. You have all those colors, those visuals, and this makes it really worth watching this film because Pixar is on fire here. I'll leave the link for the trailer and some artworks from the Pixar website for you in the description. Maybe it convinces you to watch this film. I think over the last years, with so many Pixar films being for free on Disney Plus, people simply don't appreciate any longer how great this experience in cinema is. So, and the last topic for this Pixar update is Pixar's next new feature film, Elio, which will debut in around March 2024, I guess, and which focuses on a boy called Elio. The teaser was released last week. Elio is a boy that is mistaken for the leader of Earth by some aliens. He seems to be not really confident, and he's in search of his role in the world. That's what actually the plot says, and I say it's rather crazy, but yet a story that could elaborate quite well. I like the fact how the main character seems to work so that his self-confidence will grow and that he will see he has some abilities he might not have really known yet, but they are inside him and he can use them. There are some nice visuals in the trailer, some appealing voice acting in my opinion, so this boy who voices Elio is actually only known from the Pixar Cars YouTube channel. So there's some sort of program called the Cars Garage, where they go to racetracks and observe them, or they do some challenges with real NASCAR drivers. And you wouldn't expect him to be actually that well with adding some depth and emotion into the voice. I really like that a lot. And however, the character design is partly a bit questionable. What worries me about Elio is that there are so many obscure characters, and sometimes it feels like the more obscure, the more it works. Since Star Wars, everyone tries to make aliens look so much different to what you'd expect them, maybe. If you have this classic figure of these green little people, and I'm not a huge fan of crazy creatures, but we'll see how it works in the end. There is some catchy humor and some great mood in my opinion, so we'll yet to see how it turns out. However, overall, my impression of Elio is good. I'm looking forward to the next trailer. Until then, we'll see what happens for the Pixar update. At some point, they need to drop a trailer for Win or Lose, the first long-form streaming series of the studio that premieres in December 2023. Yeah, it's quite some long time until there. I expected it earlier. Also, the second season for Monsters at Work should be out and about in a few months. So thank you very much for watching this 11th edition of the Pixar update. It's so great to have you all with me. See you again soon and bye.